Hello, and welcome to Patch Math, where today we are going to patch your math knowledge on the student experience. First, say hi to Tama Llama. She is joining us today. I want you to think back to elementary school. Imagine, if you will, what it was like in those classroom environments whenever you started trying, getting things right, and getting things wrong. Remember how different educators responded to you. My hope is that you've had some great educators who responded to your errors in a very healthy way, that saw your humanity, didn't shame you, made you feel like even though you made an error, it was okay. You can learn from that error. In fact, you can learn more from that error than if you just mimicked it correctly without what we learned from the error. But I also know at some point there's a high likelihood, because it happened to me, and it's how I make my living, helping these students that encounter this frequently. You may have had an educator give you feedback in a way that didn't exactly consider your humanity. Let me define what that may have been like. If you had an educator shame you, put big red X's all over your homework in a see me after class, or I expected better of you, if you had an educator get frustrated with you, mad at you, yell at you, punishment, sometimes the punishment was more homework problems. If you had an educator apply more pressure, more demand, you had an educator get sharp with you for making errors. So here's the thing. In a learning environment, mistakes need to be normalized as a part of the learning process. A student can learn more from making a mistake in mathematics and understanding why that mistake happened, how not to do it again, and why the correct process is the way it is. They can learn way more from that than they can from just mimicking the procedure on the board in a hurry, like I did. So I want you to think about when you encountered a mistake and at some point you learned that mistakes equal bad. Mistakes equal, I can't do this or I'm going to be shamed. I can't do this or my teacher's going to yell. I can't make a mistake or I'm going to be seen as less than. I can't make a mistake or I'm going to be seen as lazy. I can't freeze and struggle to function and because I'm overwhelmed. Because if I freeze and shut down, my teacher's going to think that it is just a moral failing on my part, that I am just unstructured, undisciplined. And again, this word lazy, I'm going to go ahead and let you know that word does not exist in my vocabulary in a learning environment. I don't know if I've ever actually met a lazy student, just that my perception was that they were lazy. And as soon as you determine that about a student, you're not, an educator is not doing their responsibility. It's like a get out of jail free card for helping that student. They're just lazy. Not my problem. Get frustrated with them, move on. That was done to me a lot, even though I was a high performing student who was very much a perfectionist. You can tell I'm very passionate about the way in which I receive feedback as a student and in the way in which I now give feedback as an educator. It breaks my heart that my job is helping students survive the school system, to help students unlearn the script that they internalize, that mistakes equal bad in the learning environment. Now, I want to say that a little asterisk. If you are a surgeon, we've got to get to where by the time you're in the professional field, you're not making mistakes. But if you are in high school Algebra 1 class and you make a mistake or make repeated mistakes or you freeze up and you can't do something and you have a teacher engage in any of those harmful, toxic behaviors, causing educational trauma is what it's called. I know because it happened to me as a teacher. Or, excuse me, I know because it happened to me as a student. I know because I see students walk around with educational trauma. If you encounter a mistake in the learning environment and you shut down, you freeze, you flop and you give up, maybe you fight back, Fight, flight, maybe you ran away. I had students that, like, they just got back from the bathroom, they get their homework back, and it's got some, problems missed, and there they go again, they're gone. Fight, flight, freeze, flop, and then fawn. That's what I primarily did. Fawn. Fawning is the people pleaser response. The teacher can't think I'm dumb. And again, I've taken dumb out of my vocabulary. I've never met a dumb student. Never met a lazy student. I was so scared of being perceived as dumb that I just mimicked the correct process without fully understanding it. And if I got something wrong, I was just deer in headlights. And my ability to access higher order reasoning went offline. And I was test taking anxiety brain. We all know it. You're like, I knew this yesterday. Why can't I do it now? Because if you are in a nervous system state, your ability to access higher order reasoning, higher order thinking, critical thinking, however you want to define it, the synthesize, the apply, all that goes offline or is reduced in capacity. And then a lot of times, think about how your educators responded to you when you were in one of those states. I got a good feeling that you may have had an educator who doubled down, who increased cognitive demand, who increased the amount of homework, who increased the amount of shame. What did that do to your state? It made it worse. We all see it. Teachers see it. When we double down on the students, do they ever respond in a way that is healthy in the long term? Sometimes you can get enough shame and pressure and anxiety that they can perform knowledge in the short term, but it is not long-term knowledge, and it pretty much just goes poof when they leave the situation. I know that because that's who I was as a student. I performed knowledge. The only reason that I know all this stuff today is that I've had the privilege of whenever I was still a student being a tutor, and then these kids would ask me, well, why is it this way? I'm just like, I don't know, because I was told that way. You can't do that as an educator. So as I started becoming a teacher, and students asked me that, I'm like, why is that? Why wasn't I ever taught that? Well, if I was taught it, my ability to absorb it wasn't there, because when I was in school, I was high anxiety and I was performing knowledge, and I was just showing what the teachers wanted on the exams, what the teachers wanted on the homework, and I didn't care about my own needs. I sacrificed sleep, friends, sanity to make the grade. Long term, followed me into college. I even did this as a teacher, and if you try to be a perfect teacher, it will obliterate you in the school system, because I tried to meet every single one of my students' needs all the time. There wasn't any time for my needs to be met. The public school system is not designed to be healthy for teachers. It's not designed to be healthy for students. We have this high pressure environment where we teach students a pile of randomly disconnected skills, and or seemingly. They're not actually disconnected. They're not. That's the thing. I wish that I had the education that I give my students back to them, because I would have been able to go, wait, I don't actually know this. I'm just being taught tips and tricks designed to pass an exam that aren't actually grounded in mathematics. Whenever I got in college and I had some educators, they were like, Haley, you don't actually know this stuff. You're just mimicking a process. And I'm like, you don't know what you're talking about. And then I go try to teach it and be like, yep, you know what you're talking about. I don't know this stuff. I'm just mimicking a process. I had to admit that, be willing to be wrong, so that way I could actually learn what was going on. One of the highest orders of learning is to teach. One of the highest orders of learning is to teach. And in that, you're able to tell what you don't know about a topic. So, this is called educational trauma. There's 5 main nervous system states that come from it. There's more that I deal with whenever I was in the public school system, and depending on the educational environment that I'm teaching with, that students bring into the classroom. Students do not arrive with the same home life. the same support, same needs being met. They don't arrive with the same learning style, the same culture, same beliefs. Students do not arrive with the same nervous system response, and if they do, if I have 5 different students that are in the freeze response, my solution to get them out of the freeze response will be different for all of the students, most likely. There's some overlap because my response will be personalized to them. It will be compassion shown for their humanity, what they responded to when I tried different healthy alternatives to help them when they get in that nervous system state. So, what does that look like? Let's say you come to a lesson with me. You've got educational trauma. You don't know I'm any different than in the educators who traumatized you. So here's also the thing. If you have a high amount of educational trauma and you encounter a healthy educator, your worldview has been so impacted by the educational trauma. Even if an educator gives you feedback in a healthy way, it's going to trigger that response. So here's the thing. Educators don't take that response personally. Please don't. And students, I know that response isn't about me. I know that if I were to reinforce the harm, if I were to shame, if I were to double down and cause more educational trauma, then yeah, it's about me. I caused harm. It is my responsibility to admit that I caused harm and fix it. And I'm grateful that in my early years of teaching, I had mentors that were able to give me feedback, and they're like, Kayla, based on your worldview, your feedback, this feedback wouldn't have harmed you in the way that you gave it, but based on the worldview of your student, you just made them feel less than. And I'd be like, oh my goodness, I did. Because I had a safe, secure home life where I didn't have to worry about survival growing up. And I know a large portion of my students in the public school system, they had to worry about things I've not even had to worry about in my adult life. There are kids who know survival that you don't. And you have to account for how they're going to receive your feedback. What does their worldview say? So that's why when I encounter one of those nervous system states, I didn't take it personally. But I did know that it was then my responsibility because I had to know how to respond in a healthier way to do it, to offer that healthy environment to my students. And I can securely say that's what I do today. If I mess up, I own it and I correct it because I reflect on every single one of my lessons to see what was successful, what needed work, what can we celebrate. I do it for myself and the students. That's the thing. I learn and grow right alongside my students. I can remember when I first started recording myself online, and I would, my nervous system state to errors still happen. I can remember that I would make an error, and then suddenly I just hold my breath. I go back and watch the lesson. Here I am going, hold my breath. I'm like, why is my response? Because I was freezing. The internal freeze, deer in headlights. I was like, oh my God, I'm in there. Let's scurry. And then my higher order reasoning went online, and then I was communicating in an anxious state, and I was not showing the students how I respond to their errors because I was responding to their errors like, oh, that's okay. You made an error, but I'm so glad that you did that because this is what we can learn from this error. And if you didn't make this error, you would have never learned this. So thank you so much for trying and making that error. But when they were seeing me when I made an error go, like, speaking in cursive, as my students used to say. And I received some feedback and I'm like, Kayla, you're not practicing what you are teaching. And then I was like, oh my goodness, I'm not offering the same understanding. I'm like, yeah, I'm a professional. I'm a teacher. I'm still human. I'm going to come in days tired and there's going to be a copy over error. They don't happen much. I catch them. And when I catch them, I use it to embody, to model. Oh, sorry that error happened, but I'm actually really glad it did. So that way you can see that even teachers this happens sometimes. Copy over error is the most common error in mathematics. It's not usually about what the student knows. I am so grateful that that's where I am today. And I'm going to continue to learn and grow and refine and have healthier responses to the nervous system states such that When you come to my lessons, you don't even know I'm responding to it. You get something wrong, say you shut down. I'm not even going to flag it as a concern. I'm going to naturally pull into my toolkit, reduce cognitive demand without reducing expectation, keeping you engaged, but in a way that feels less threatening. So your higher order reasoning can come back online. And whenever your higher order reasoning comes back online, then we re-engage and the students stay engaged the entire time. You don't know I'm responding to it, but that's why I'm making this video. Sometimes I hear my clients are like, Kayla, I don't know what you're doing, but it obviously works. And I was like, yeah, what is it I'm doing? How am I getting clients that have stuck around since 2018? Even though I was human and I made errors and I had messed up from time to time. And it is this. When their students come to me, they see their child become more themselves over time, not less. And it's a shame. When I was in the public school system, by the time students got to high school, their energy was dim. They were just like a shadow of themselves. I know because I went through that when I was in high school. Who I was just muted. I conformed, performed knowledge. It's the perfect student. Who I was tucked behind a curtain. It didn't come out. There wasn't time. I was so stressed, so anxious, so overwhelmed. And I had a good home life. That's the thing, guys. And I know what it did to me. Educational trauma is real. The scripts that we feed these students is how they will come to look at themselves. So if we shame them for mistakes, they will have a shame-based reaction to mistakes. I want to challenge you that find healthy learning environments if you can. I know they're hard to find. And see how you feel about education in those environments where your mistakes are celebrated just as much as when you get it right. What happens to you? Because here's another thing we do. We get frustrated at students that they have this fixed mindset, that they give up, they shut down, I'm just not good at math. But we don't give them the environment to have a growth mindset. I shame them for not having a growth mindset. Why would they want to have a growth mindset whenever they are overloaded, overwhelmed? Their brains are constantly operating in survival because the education system has become something they must survive. I help students survive the education system, and I hope you can tell that I'm mad about that. I should not be helping students survive education. Education should not be something that you have to survive. Education should be something that opens up your world, not makes you believe less in yourself. It should open up your world. I know, because when I started getting a healthy education, healthy educators who saw my humanity, who reduced cognitive demand but did not reduce expectation, who worked alongside me, not in a hierarchy, and helped me ask questions to where gradually, over time, I opened up. I became more myself over time, not less. And that's what I offer my students. I see students come in, and by the end of the year, they're more themselves. And if they're still here after 7 years, they are firmly themselves. They are grounded. They are confident. They know what they can do, and they know what to do whenever they encounter an error. They are competent. And it's not because of drill and kill 30 problems a lesson. I don't do that. We might get through 5, but here's the thing: we are going to work together. You're going to gain the knowledge for yourself, guided by me and you. And we are going to treat this like a learning opportunity where every part of your engagement is celebrated. Because you can learn more. And I'll say this from fact. You will. I know, because I was a fawner who mimicked and tried to get everything right, but didn't fully understand what I was handing my teachers. I know that the grounded discussion that you and I will have during a lesson about mathematics, rooted in actual mathematics, not tips and tricks that are designed to pass an exam, actual mathematics, then you'll start to go, oh, okay, that's what math's about. Well, I was taught this trick and it confused me because I was able to use it here and not here. I'm like, yeah, I know. Isn't it frustrating that you're taught cross multiplication, but we don't use it in the intuitive environment? So when students are taught how to multiply fractions and then taught cross multiplication, which has nothing, it has nothing to do with multiplying fractions. Those fractions are set equal to each other. Students, almost every single student I met will confuse multiplying fractions, cross multiplication. They are not the same skill. They're a vastly different skill. Cross multiplication is a trick. It comes from the properties of equality. All right, what you do to one side of the equal signs, for so long as you do the exact same thing to the other, the original value of the equation is retained. And then they took like 3 or 4 steps and then took those steps out and then just taught cross multiplication. And we have multiple generations who are confused by this. I know because it's taught to me. I know because it's still being taught in all students. I'm like, all right, I get your teacher wants you to know this. I was like, so you will still be doing cross multiplication at the very end, but let's go ahead and learn these 3 other steps. And yeah, it's going to take a little bit more time, but you're going to understand where cross multiplication comes from. So when you get on an exam, you're going to use it in the right spot. Math is not a bunch of tips and tricks for speed. Math is logical flow, grounded in properties, theorems, and definitions. Every bit of it can be. Is. And whenever students are able to see that, then they're like, okay, math makes sense. It's a shame that I have so many students come to me and their opinion of themselves is, I'm just bad at math. My favorite thing is whenever, after a little while working with me, I'm like, do you believe you're bad at math? And it's usually no. And I'm like, I don't expect it to be your favorite thing. I get it. We all have preferences. That's cool. If you don't love math by the time we're done, that's fine. All that matters is that you have a little bit of a less fear-based response. That your nervous system doesn't come online as much. That you know that when you have an educator give you feedback in a shame-based way that does not see your humanity, who causes educational trauma, if you're watching this video, I need you to know that educator is wrong. Okay? I know why they're doing it. It does not excuse it. They are responsible for not passing this stuff down. And yet, it still happens because of the high pressure environment both students and teachers are in. My job is to help you survive the education system, a system you should not be surviving. We should not have to survive education. When you come into my lessons, you're not going to be surviving them. If you feel like you can't breathe, that your brain just goes offline, yet is running 1,000,000 miles a minute, but you still can't think. If you shut down, if you've just given up, if you have no energy, no motivation, it's not a moral failing. It's a shame-based response in your nervous system, fear-based response, some negative emotion-based response that triggers your nervous system. Your higher order reasoning goes offline. If you have a teacher who doubles down, they are not giving you a chance. They're creating a self-fulfilling prophecy. Teachers, if you double down, you're creating a self-fulfilling prophecy. I see your humanity, and I will continue to try to normalize mistakes for so long as we see them as learning opportunities, because I know how much I've learned from the mistakes that I've made in mathematics as a teacher, because I couldn't make the mistakes whenever I was a student. I pretended to know it. I pretended to know it, and I didn't actually know it until I became a teacher. And then I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't actually know these things. I was able to perform knowledge without actually knowing, because our education system is designed that way. We know whenever we become teachers that these standardized exams, we don't want them to be what we teach to, but unfortunately, that's a lot of what I still see. They add layers between it, like the learning targets and all that. Okay, yeah, the standards are important, the learning targets are important. But the way that those standardized exams have come to determine the type of education you will be receiving is a shame, and it's not right. It's not what true education is. It's not what true education is. Mistakes are the most valuable information we have in the learning process. I know more about what a student knows from a mistake than I do know if they were to perform and mimic the process. My goal for anybody watching this is to work on noticing what happens to you when you make a mistake inside. And notice it without shame. Just kind of know it. Be like, oh, I shut down. My chest, I couldn't breathe. My chest felt like it was clutching. I got tunnel vision. I started shaking. I got the cold sweats. You have physical responses to making mistakes. Just notice it. And then have a little empathy for yourself, a little understanding. Go, oh, I learned this response because it kept me safe in harmful learning environments. You should have never had to learn how to be kept safe in a harmful learning environment. You should have never had a harmful learning environment. You shouldn't have to be worried about your emotional safety in a learning environment. They're human. We're going to make mistakes. The best thing we can do is learn from them. And if we are taught that we are less than for making them, are we going to learn from those mistakes? No, we're not. We're going to run from them. I know I did. So there you have it. Your math knowledge has just been patched on the student experience. If any of this sounds like what you're dealing with, reach out. I still have openings this semester, and I would love the opportunity to show you what a healthy math education looks like. I would like you to become more yourself over time, not less. I'm here to help you do that. Thank you so much for your time.